Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Political Science 190, Political Economy of Development. I am Colin Grimes. I am your professor for this class. I hope that you had a wonderful break and that you're feeling bored. I know mine was very, very eventful. I hope that you're ready to get back into it because we have a really eventful and exciting and interesting set of topics this semester in this class. Now, I don't know about you, but I have an interest in both politics and economics. And so for me, this course is interesting because we begin to look at the intersection between the two and how it becomes important for things like economic growth and peace and stability and all those things that we consider good and desirable. Now, today, we won't really get into a lot of content. What we will do is introduce the terms for the course, the syllabus. We'll talk about the nuts and the bolts and some administrative items. I do plan to introduce myself in more detail and talk a little bit about my own interests. I hope to hear from you as well, but I understand if you don't feel prepared or if you don't want to talk to the class. Today is just sort of introductory, and we'll talk about expectations and how things will go once we actually get started on Friday with the content for the course. Now, I've gone ahead and shared the syllabus in PDF form through the chat. So I encourage you to just download a copy of that. It's possible that we may make some changes along the way, but for now, this is what we'll start with and what we're working with. It should be relatively straightforward, but we will go over it piece by piece together so that we can address any concerns or questions that you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get situated here and share the syllabus, the screen that is. Oh, I don't want that. Okay, we'll just do this. Okay, so this is Political Economy of Development. This is, of course, an online course. And as you know, we're doing those exclusively right now due to the pandemic. So we'll meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time live. It will be synchronous, as we say, and we'll meet for 50 minutes at a time. And the invitation link for the meeting will always be available in announcements on CAT courses. So I try to have that up there with plenty of time to spare, but it can't always be found there. If for whatever reason you find that the link doesn't work, which is sometimes an issue for some students, you can also search my name in Zoom and you can actually bring up any active meetings. I don't use passcodes, so if that happens to you, you should be able to join the meeting at that time. If the original link doesn't work for you. So sometimes students will email me at the moment when courses begin because they can't get in, and I'm not able to respond because I'm hosting the course. So I just encourage you to keep in mind that if you have any issues, that's one way to join the course. So we will meet at the scheduled time every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I will also record the lecture, and I'm recording this as well. And what I do is I post the videos to YouTube, and then I share a page with links that I keep on CAT courses. You can access all those lectures after the fact. If you're a student who is not able to attend all of the lectures in person, virtually that is, you can of course review those lectures by watching the video later. The goal is to be as accessible as possible, so we can be flexible and you can access the content in those different sorts of ways. My office hours are going to be from 3:30 to 5 p.m. On Wednesday and Friday. So I encourage you to come in, just walk in if you want. You can make an appointment as well if the walk-in times don't work for you. If you want to meet with me at some other time and you want to reach out to me and schedule that, just do that, and we can figure out something that works for both of us. So you can of course reach me via my email address, which is here. You can also just type my name in on Outlook and it should bring me up. You can also just contact me through CAT courses as well and use the portal to email me. And I encourage you to email me. I do my best to respond in a timely manner, but I receive a lot of email. So I do my best to respond within 24 hours, but sometimes it might take a little bit longer. So this course is about development, and it's about the political economy of development. And no doubt you've seen that term thrown around, political economy. You maybe have wondered what that means. And is it an approach? Is it a set of topics? Is it a thing? It's actually all of those things. And what we'll do in this course is we'll focus on questions about growth and political stability and peace and prosperity. We'll pay close attention in particular to the differences between countries and why some countries grow to be quite stable and rich, and while others remain repressive and poor. So we'll focus a lot on those big divergences, and we'll focus on questions of the political and economic drivers of development. So that gets us into policy and political institutions and actors and the various political factors that become crucial when we talk about the growth and the prosperity and the stability of an individual country. So this is a comparative course, and we'll focus on those key patterns of similarity and difference that emerge across countries within regions, across regions themselves. And in general, we'll be looking at a wide variety of experiences, not just in Latin America and Asia and Africa, but also earlier experiences in Western Europe, the United States. My interest and my background is in Latin American politics and political economy. So naturally, my bias and my preparation lends itself to drawing on Latin American cases. And so we'll focus a lot on Latin America, but we won't focus on Latin America exclusively. So really the big picture of this is that development and growth and prosperity is political, and it's also economic. And so we'll focus a lot on the politics. We will focus on some economic policies and patterns, and we'll analyze them, but you don't need to have a background in economics to engage in that analysis. You just don't. We're able to do that with the social scientific preparation that we have and as political scientists. So we'll be addressing these types of issues and these types of questions in this course. Of course, there's so much more to political economy, and in development itself is a huge basket, but we will select some of the most important issues and questions for analysis in this course. Let me take a look at the chat and see who we have. Okay, so it looks like we're good. I just want to encourage you all to use the chat whenever you want to ask questions, make comments. You can also raise your hand, use the raise your hand function if you want to chime in. I'm more than happy and excited to give you the floor at any point in time if you want to comment or interject. So please just feel free to use this space as your own space as well as mine. So the objectives in this class really are twofold. We're interested in the theory and the practice of development, and we want to critically assess both. We're not just interested in the analysis of development, we're also interested in the practice of development. So in this course, we want to be able to critically assess theory and practice. We want to address and describe key issues and perspectives and questions that arise in the study of development in political science. We want to describe and assess the economic and the political drivers of development, the key policy configurations or factors or circumstances that seem to be successful in promoting development. And then finally, we want to be able to conduct basic but rigorous social science research and inquiry on questions that relate to development. And as you'll see in a moment, I've tried to put together a set of assignments that will speak to all of those issues and will get you thinking critically and analytically and synthetically about the key issues and the key topics in this field of study and this field of practice. So from the get-go, I want us to be thinking about this in a multidimensional way. It's not just an academic exercise. We're also talking about the lives of real people and the practice of development on the ground and the way that theory gets translated into practice. Now, the course will be structured and conducted entirely online. You will use Zoom if you choose to participate. And of course, if you're here now, you're using Zoom, and I thank you for being here and for using the technology. You no doubt know that you don't necessarily need to download the software to use it. You can just follow the link and open it on your browser. But I've actually discovered that using the software does actually help the program perform better. For example, if you don't want to get cut off or lose a connection, sometimes it's better to use the desktop software. But I'm not pushing it. You don't need to. I'm pretty sure that as UCR faculty and students, there's no cost for us. So I don't think there's any harm in downloading if you choose to. So these lectures will be delivered live, as you can see already. And I do expect you to attend class meetings, not just because it's essential for you to be here to connect the themes and to think critically, to ask questions and to analyze topics, but also because you're in a good position to learn a great deal from each other. I like to use interactive formats and activities in class to get you to discuss topics collegially and with me. And I believe that the more we can interact and the more information we can share, the better. And so I do encourage you, if not request or even require you to be here if you can. I don't require it technically, but I do strongly encourage you to be here. If you're not able to because of conflicts, I certainly understand. This is a circumstance that presents all of us with a variety of challenges. Many of us are working, multiple jobs, if not even just one, which is also a lot as a student. Some of us are taking care of family. Many of us are working at home. And so I'm aware of those challenges, but do your best to participate and be here. And that doesn't just mean participating in attending lecture. It means reading and preparing and completing all assigned reading on time so that you're in the best possible position to contribute. Now, I've discussed the requirements and I've talked about the way that you'll need Zoom. You'll need a personal or an off-campus computer at a bare minimum to continue to dial in and to join these meetings, and a webcam and a microphone as well if you choose to participate. Of course, I don't require you to, but when I put you in groups, for example, you might find that it's useful to be able to interact in ways outside of just the chat. Now, regarding those invitations, you can always find those posted in announcements on CAT courses. I try to have them up by at least an hour before class, but sometimes time is limited, and it may take me a moment. But I can assure you that it'll always be shared well in advance. And if for whatever reason the link doesn't work for you, as a reminder, you can just search my name and join any active meetings I have going on Zoom. Now, of course, regarding email too, I'll just add this, even though it's not on the syllabus. If you email me, first of all, I'd love to hear from you, but address me and indicate who you are and what class you're in, and then just be concise and succinct. We receive a great deal of email, and we try to respond in a very timely way, and it helps a lot if students are cordial and professional in the way they communicate. So please just be thoughtful and mindful about that, and we'll probably all get what we want much quicker. Now, regarding office hours, just a reminder, you can come in from 3:30 to 5 every Wednesday and Friday to see me. You can walk in, or you can even schedule a period or try to set aside a period within that hour and a half to meet with me. If those scheduled hours don't work for you, that's completely fine. I'm happy to meet with you at a time that works for you. I encourage you to just reach out to me and let me know that you want to talk to me at some other time, and I'm happy to set something up with you. Yes, office hours will start this week, so you're welcome to come in today, and I'd be happy to chat with you. We'll have an hour and a half, and well, we'll have to flip over to the office hours um, link that I'll make here shortly after class, but you can essentially just flip on over with me if you want. You'll have to open that new link, but I will be holding those hours today after class to start off. Let's talk a little bit about the grading and the evaluations for the course. So the first assignment for the course is going to be a problem set. And this is common in courses that relate to development. economics or development politics. The reason is because when we talk about the practice and the theory of development, there's a lot of applied um, content and a lot of ideas and concepts that are used in practice or that are thought about very critically and synthetically for the purpose of policy or designing programs. And so I'm going to give you a problem set that lists a series of exercises based on material that I've already taught you. And you are expected to solve those problems with a full written solution. And this is designed to get you thinking critically about theory and practice. And I'll distribute this 1 week prior. You'll have a full week to complete it, which should be more than enough time. And I prohibit you from working together to solve the problems because I require that you complete the exercises with the knowledge that you gain through your own individual study. So this is really designed to evaluate your preparation and how much and to what degree you've absorbed the material from the course and to what degree you're capable of thinking and using it creatively. So I do require that you do this individually. The problem set will be the first assignment, and if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be due on February 19th. Um, but I'm pretty sure it's February 19th, but you'll have more than a month, uh, around a month into the course before you really have to complete and turn that in. And that will be based on the earliest material from the course. That's 20% of the course grade. The second component of the grading is an analytic essay. And this is going to be about a 6 double-spaced page essay that really is sort of like a think piece. And it's meant to be an analytic paper, not a restatement of the readings. And I want you to use, analyze, critique, and connect the readings by focusing on a single issue, debate, or concept. And I want you to develop a unique original argument that is rooted in theory and evidence from the course. You don't need to include all the readings in this paper, but you do need to draw on more than just one. This is a sort of more analytical and synthetic exercise that requires you to kind of think creatively while you use the themes and the content and the approaches from the course. The analytic essay will come after the midterm exam later on in the semester. And I have all the dates, the due dates for the assignments on the course schedule, which we'll take a peek at here in just a moment. Rady asks, will we be doing multiple problem sets or just one? We'll be just doing one. And the reason is because the problem set will be primarily devoted to the first third of the course, where we review and cover classic and contemporary theories of development and practice. And we also cover the role of political institutions and some other frameworks that capture key variables. The problem set will really be focused on that first third of the course. And you'll see how that content dovetails nicely with this exercise because it's later on in the course where we begin to cover more of the substantive topics. We get into in different sorts of issues. Now, that analytic essay, as I mentioned, is kind of a different exercise than the problem set. My objective here is to give you a variety of different kinds of assignments. In the past, I focused more on writing, and I still believe that writing is essential, but I think that in a course like this, we can learn a lot from different sorts of exercises. And so that's why the third component of the course, the exams, will be slightly different than what I've done in the past too. The midterm and the final exams will be multiple choice and short answer. There won't be an essay component. Instead, there will be more of an emphasis on short responses and sort of retained knowledge from some of the reading. The objective here is to give you an incentive to complete the reading in a timely and disciplined way, but also be prepared to write in a coherent and analytical way in smaller increments to complete the exam. And so we'll have a midterm and a final. And in this regard, the midterm and the final will be slightly different than even the analytic essay and the problem set. So these different assignments will work together, but they will be different and they will be distinctive, and they will in some ways develop different strengths. Just very quickly, we'll cover some basics here that concern expectations and requirements. Regarding guidelines for the written assignments, it needs to be primitive. Just use Times New Roman, double spaced, of course, paginated, 1-inch margins, properly cite the sources you use, include a reference list or bibliography, all the basics. You can use whatever style or format you like, as long as it's consistent and as long as you use it in a disciplined way. So if you like APA, you can use APA. If you like Chicago, you can use Chicago, MLA, so on and so forth. I just require that you be consistent and that you be conventioned in your use of those conventions. I don't know if that's a word, but I made it one. I'm very flexible, and I understand that we're working under extremely difficult circumstances. That includes me, who's at home and without access to a lot of the materials that I would normally have. And so I'm well aware. I'm very, very flexible, but I do require that you communicate with me and that you have a legitimate reason if something comes up and you're not able to complete something. Now, you need to complete stuff on time and submit things on time. But if an emergency comes up and that prevents you from completing things on time, do communicate with me about it right away. There's not much I can do if you tell me only after the fact. So you need to be very professional and courteous and thoughtful about this. I'm flexible, but keep in mind that there are limits. And even during a pandemic, we have to maintain some degree of sort of honor and dignity, and we have to be routine and timely about our assignments when we complete them. One thing I found is that when you're flexible, students sometimes really miss out on some of the extra accountability that they may not have realized they depend on. And so even though it's a pandemic, you might find that it's hard to finish things and harder to finish things. Really, really try to use deadlines to your advantage. I create them for a reason. And so if that deadline passes and you're not done yet, it can be much harder to finish stuff. So I'm just keeping it real with you. As flexible as we are, we also want to finish things. And my main objective for you is to finish the course first, and to gain knowledge and develop your critical thinking skills, and to do it in a way that is successful and takes place during the semester. So let's finish all the assignments on time. If you're not able to, you need to have an emergency or some circumstance that prevented you from doing that. In which case, I'll talk with you about how we can work it out. But keep in mind that the semester goes very quickly, and if we're not disciplined about completing things, they can get away from us very easily. Now, if you're a student with special needs or who needs accommodations, just speak with me as soon as possible, and we will consult services for students with disabilities and make sure that everything is set up for you. Do talk with me right away so that I'm aware of your particular needs and I can record them in preparation for the exams and any activities or assignments that we do that might be in class. Now, I'm not going to just do this piecemeal bit by bit review of the schedule because I think that gets very, very mundane. And I'd imagine that it's material that you'll be reviewing anyway as you prepare for the remainder of the course. But I'll bring your attention to just some of the sort of brush strokes, if you will. First and foremost, we'll introduce the concept of development, and we'll do so by thinking about concepts and patterns of economic growth, conceptualizations of development and how they've evolved. We'll also talk about political economy and what it is and what it means to do the political economy of development. We'll spend about a week and a half on these items, and these early readings that we'll do by Sin and Roderick will tie together these themes in a very nice and sort of introductory way that I think is useful to get started. We'll move on and discuss some classic and contemporary models, theories of development. We'll talk about endowments and geography and some of the initial conditions that have been linked to economic development over the long term. We'll eventually move to political institutions, and we'll talk about differences in institutions and how they can impact development over the long term. Relatedly, we'll discuss the legacies of slavery and colonialism and how still today those legacies rear their heads, so to speak. February 19th, right around here, is when the first assignment will be due. That's the problem set. I will give you at least a week to complete that, perhaps more. And so you can anticipate getting that within first couple weeks of February. And that again will draw on that early material from the course and primarily these theories of development. We'll talk about different economic crises, periods of reform, and then collapse in developing countries and how these relate to development. So we'll discuss the rise and the fall of import substitution industrialization, which is one model of economic development pursued by developing countries. We'll talk next about the rise and the fall of neoliberal market economics as a development strategy pursued by developing countries. And throughout, we'll be discussing Latin America, but also Asia. We'll be contrasting experiences across the regions and within the regions as well. The midterm exam will take place on March 12th. That will be an exam that takes place during class time. The way those exams will work is I will post the exam as a file on CAT courses, and there will be an assignment link created where you could submit your completed exam on CAT courses as well. And you'll have the duration of class time. And well, it's a 50-minute class. And so keeping that in mind, the exam will reflect that. But you will have the duration of class. In some cases, I give you a few extra minutes because we can, frankly. But you should be prepared to complete the exam in the time that's allotted for the class time. After that first exam, we'll begin to move to more of the substantive issues beyond crises that relate to development. And so we'll talk about, for example, patrimonial rule and corruption in Africa and Latin America. Then we'll have spring break and the Cesar Chavez holiday before we return and begin addressing foreign aid and the role of foreign aid in promoting development or hindering development. We'll turn eventually to institution building and how institution building in politics impacts political development. Now, this is where we begin to focus on political development in this course. We don't just focus on economic development. We're also interested in the growth and the improvement of political institutions. And so we'll focus on the political and the economic factors that promote political development and democratic development in particular. So institution building will be the first focus. We'll turn to democratization next. We'll turn eventually to autocratic and authoritarian institutions. On April 23rd, the analytic essay will be due. That is the third assignment from the course. And the third of 4 assignments, social development will be our second to final topic, where we'll talk about state and society and the role of the state in social engineering or designing or reconfiguring society from a sort of economic calculus kind of point of view. Finally, we'll discuss policy reform and the political economy of policy reform in the contemporary period. The final exam is on May 8th from 8 to 11 a.m. And that is the scheduled time that's been given to this course. That will take place, of course, the same way that the midterm took place. I'll post the exam and you'll have the duration of that assigned period to complete it. And then you submit that exam through the portal or the link that I create for it on CAT courses. Now, the final exam will cover material from the second half of the course. The midterm exam, of course, will cover material from the first half. The course is not strictly cumulative in the sense that I don't test you on all of the substantive material, but it's sort of cumulative in the sense that a lot of the second half builds on ideas from the first half. So it will be very difficult to do well in the second half if you don't come into it with a strong grounding in the ideas from the first half. So there's a real incentive to be prepared to get started and stay engaged for the whole duration of the semester. Let me check the chat because I think that we have some comments here. No, we won't use math for the problem sets. I know that when you get a problem set, it sort of carries that connotation. And in fact, in economics, most problem sets will be mathematical, but in this course, we're not going to be doing or using mathematical reasoning. We'll be using more qualitative and comparative reasoning, and we'll be thinking with the approaches and the theoretical approaches that come from that first part of the class. Victor says, are these things open book? Yeah, everything is open book. Everything is open book. And so In this circumstance, I can't really put a limit on what materials you'll use. And frankly, I think I prefer to just let you use those materials anyway, because realistically, in the real world, we do have materials at our disposal. And so I want you to be able to work with that stuff. And so, yeah, everything is open book. So I think that a good idea is to use the remainder of our time to sort of do some introductions. We have like 17 minutes left, I'm pretty sure. And I think that it would be good for me to just talk briefly about myself and tell you a little bit about my background and where I've come from and how I came to teaching this topic at UC Merced. So let me bring this back to. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the administrative items, I can tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Colin, and I'm a lecturer here at UC Merced in political science. I've been here since August, and this is, I guess, my first year. And I cover comparative politics and political economy, democracy and democratization, developing countries, development. These topics are really interesting to me because this is the stuff that I do my own research on and that I've written about and published about in the past. I received my PhD from the University of California, Riverside in September 2019. It's amazing to me that it was that recently. It seems like it was forever ago, but I completed it in September 2019, and my dissertation was a study of the political economy of defense industry reform. And I developed a coalitional and institutional model that explains variation in the outcomes of efforts to reform the ownership and management of defense industries in developing countries. So I studied Turkey, Portugal, Argentina, Chile. Those were my cases, but I've also written about Ecuador in the past. I have an interest in Latin America and an interest in Southern Europe. My interest in Latin America is informed by extensive fieldwork that I've done there in Chile and Argentina, where I did interviews and archival work. I interviewed civilian and political and military elites, party leaders, bureaucrats, to try to understand the political and the administrative processes of reform in those countries. So I've also written about a variety of other topics like export taxes, international organizations, and domestic reforms. I'm interested in these topics because I care a lot about democratic progress and development, economic development. I'm obviously motivated a lot by social justice issues because for me, politics and economics are inseparable from those because they are intimately linked to the actual distribution of wealth and power in society. And so we're always engaged in this. And so this is the nature of my research. I just finished a paper that summarizes a lot of my dissertation research. It's under review and it's under revise and resubmit at Studies in Comparative International Development. I've also published in Comparative Politics, Latin American Perspectives. And so this is work I'm doing and that is being done right now and that I like to spend my time when I'm not teaching focusing on. My first appointment was at Skidmore College. Skidmore College is a private liberal arts college in upstate New York. I was there for a year and I enjoyed it very much, but it was an environment that was new to me. I came from rural Nebraska and went to a small state university where I was fortunate enough to have a job as a research assistant and to work with faculty and get exposed to a lot of these topics. And eventually I made my way to California. But Skidmore was my first job and I enjoyed it very much. I'm actually still living in New York because when I was hired at UC Merced, there was a pandemic. And in fact, it was unsafe and difficult, if not impossible virtually to move. And so I'm still here and I'm living in the Hudson Valley now, which is technically part of New York City, but everyone out here would tell you that it's the boonies. It's really beautiful here. It's a nice place to be. I do miss California, although it's been a really difficult time for California due to wildfires and a variety of different circumstances. And so I feel for you, and I know that COVID is more difficult there and more of a challenge still than it is in many places. So I empathize with you a lot, and I know you're going through a lot. I'm really happy that you're here and that we can do this despite the circumstances. Um, and at the end of the day, I am very enthusiastic about the topic, political economy of development, the theory and the practice of development, and the questions about power and wealth and well-being that really are at the center of political economic analysis. So this is my background, and this is my set of interests. This is the kind of work that I do. If I had to categorize my interest, I'm most inclined to study the political economy of policy reform, which we'll focus on in week 15 of this course, where we'll do some reading on the contemporary nature of policy reform and some of the factors that shape policy reform today as compared to a couple decades ago, when much of the literature was really developed and in embryo. So that's me. We have 11 minutes left, and I don't expect anyone to say anywhere near that much about themselves, but I think that it would be useful for us to just say hello if you want, and talk a little bit about your interests, what you like about the course, or what brought you here, what you want to learn about, and yeah. So I think that if anyone would like to say hello and get us started, that would be really great.
Oh, I can go ahead.
Sure.
How's it going, everybody? I'm the teaching assistant for this class. My name's Adolfo. My background doesn't exactly line up with the class, but so my background is in cognitive mechanics, computational data science work. I'm also a PhD, so I'm a fifth year PhD candidate in the cognitive and information sciences program here at UC Merced. So I do have a small amount of the background that I do have on related topics is I've looked at economic models, and specifically at food finding behavior, search models that a lot of times use sort of economic theoretical framework, as well as a little bit of background from a long time ago in terms of like Cold War politics.
Great, thank you, Adolfo. Can we hear from anyone else who would like to tell us a little bit about their background or their interests?
Hi, my name is Karen. I am a fourth year poli-sci student. I actually had you, Professor Grimes, last semester for Transitions to Democracy. And I've never really thought of political economic development, but I'm really interested to learn what this class is about. So I'm excited for that.
Great, it's so good to see you again, Karen. Yes, we had Transitions to Democracy last semester, and that was a really interesting course, not just because of the topic, but where we are in the world today. And really, we started the course by talking about how reversals of democracy are more common than transitions to democracy. So it's a brave new world. And one thing that we'll notice in this class as well, everybody, is that there are a lot of waves, waves of globalization, waves of growth, waves of democratization. Things come and go. We are only occasionally in equilibrium, as the economists would say. It seems like more often than not, things are changing and we're in flux. But that's also why political economy is so interesting, because really it's politics that exposes a lot of that disorganization and a lot of that adjustment. And when you get into politics, we start to see how there can be so much change over time, and how things can change so much and be so different from place to place. Now, we're going to begin very abstractly in the class, kind of like what we've already discussed a little bit in just this brief few minutes. But there's so much here, and there's so much to hold on to and to take interest in. Does anyone else want to talk a little bit about their interests or their background or their angle they're coming at this from?
Sure. I'm a senior studying economics and philosophy. So I'm not really a poli sci major, but I mean, the politics is always connected to the economy. So I think it's pretty interesting in this touching time to see, especially like with, I think, the rise of authoritarianism and our own problems within our country, like misinformation, how it's going to affect the economy in the future. And I'm more interested in it to see how it can affect investments in the future, to see what part of the market would be best to look into.
Yeah, that's really cool, Max. The question of information is so important in economics because it's how people make decisions. And the issue of investing and thinking about information you have access to and how to use it becomes relevant, not just for individuals, but for countries and developing countries in particular, because they have to so carefully allocate their scarce resources. And, it's actually interesting in my own research, I've become really interested lately in information too, because um, when militaries own large companies, they tend to exploit their close proximity to the state to get insider information. And they tend to abuse this advantage and distort competition in that way. And so information becomes so relevant when we talk about development, not just because of questions of investing, but questions of fairness and competition and in a level playing field. And so I think that what's so interesting about having all these different perspectives is that all of us have something unique that we are drawn to. And we really are in a good position to leverage that and to teach each other about what we know and how we can understand the topics that we study in a better way. And so you'll learn that from me, you'll learn that from each other. It's really cool. I like it when we have students from a lot of different fields. And so, of course, many of you will come from political science, but many of you will also come from economics. Some will come from philosophy. Some will come from neuroscience. All of you have something equally interesting to say. And so that's what's cool about political economy. Moreover, and I'll stop here. Political economy is sort of like the dean of all hybrid sciences. It brings together philosophy and sociology and history and politics, law. All of these are present, and so all of us have something that we can bring to the table. We've got a few minutes left. Can we talk a little more about interests that we have or our background or where we're coming from?
I guess I'll go. So I'm a third year econ major, and I'm really interested in this class because I just like how you can see the world more in a different way. Instead of just looking at it from this country, you can also look at it in countries that need more help. Just like you said, Argentina, Chile, but I'm more interested in like Central America. So I hope this class could teach me something like that.
Oh yeah, Walter, absolutely. Central America is so important for so many reasons. They have a number of social and economic and political crises that sort of overlap. In the question of social development is especially important for countries like Honduras and El Salvador. So we will deal with that, and we'll get into Central America. We'll do our best to cover as much territory as we can. But Central America, along with Venezuela, as far as Latin American countries are concerned, have a similar set of challenges, although in Venezuela, the challenges are much more pronounced. Very interesting. I'm so happy to hear this. Let's hear from some more people if they feel comfortable sharing.
Good afternoon, Professor. My name is Matthew. I am a third-year student, double major in political science and economics, so this class is kind of right up my alley. I'm interested to see what we learn in this class because I took a 190 class with Adi Dasgupta called Politics of Poverty and Prosperity, where we pretty much talked about, material and political conditions around the world and how countries got to that stage. And the different competing theories on how they got there. So I'm excited to see the overlap and differences between that class and this class. And on top of that, it's just a really interesting time in history to take a class like this because it's kind of safe to say we're ending a historical epoch. And kind of going into, a world unknown. So understanding, the current conditions can help us make better decisions in the future.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you, Matt. And I think that's so true because it's kind of a crisis of democracy and kind of a crisis of market economics that overlap right now. And the future is sort of unknown. Neoliberalism seems to be more challenged than ever before, as does democracy. And so what we'll cover in this class that will be new is we'll talk about, the political economy of democratic and authoritarian institutions and how economic and political factors influence those, in addition to some of the different roots of poverty and prosperity, but thinking about development even more broadly than you probably did in that class. And so we'll think about like human capabilities and different dimensions of development as like sort of a capacity as opposed to just an indicator. But there certainly will be some overlap. And 80, of course, is probably the faculty member who along with me, focuses the most on political economy. And so it's really good that you have that background. Of course, those of you who haven't come from economics or political economy, no worries. This course is designed to be accessible to all. And you don't need to have that kind of a background to be able to engage these issues in a rigorous way. And so we'll all be able to do that, I have no doubt. And of course, I'll be available to help you too. And your teaching assistant is someone who can be really, really useful in this regard as well. Listen, everybody, I apologize to any of you who didn't have a chance to say hello. We'll meet again on Friday and you can speak and maybe say hello then if you'd like to. But this does actually conclude today's meeting. We used all of our time, which is great. I went ahead and I posted the first reading on CAT courses. I'm going to be uploading the remaining readings gradually over the course of the next week, but you should have everything that you need to prepare for Friday. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you on Friday and look out for the invitation link for both office hours today as well as Friday's meeting. All right, so that does it. Have a good one.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Professor, can I ask one last quick question?
Yeah,
There's no required text for this course, correct?
correct. I provide all the readings.
That's how I like it. Thank you very much.
Cool, thanks.